Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Homage to Bharabhanti, Guru Bhanti Bhikkhu Sangh, Metta to Anagarikas and Upasakas, Upasikas. So, we welcome you again to this evening. After the chanting and meditation, it's a good time to listen to few words of Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. So, today I would like to share a teaching from Chanki Sutta. The sutta comes because of a Brahmin whose name was Chanki. And this sutta has many aspects, many facet to it. It tells us the culture of the time in the Buddha, the Brahmins, about the Brahmins who were the leading religious community in the time of Buddha. Apart from the Shramanas, they were the two leading community, the Brahmanas and the Shramanas. Buddha comes under Shramanas, so also Mahavira and others. Basically, those who are renunciate, who are ascetics, who left the home and lead an ascetic life. So, this story tells us, this sutta tells us what were the relationship between Buddha and the Brahmins, and did they have any conversation? If so, how it was, and what was the Brahmins' view, and what was the Buddha's view, and how they spoke with each other in the form of conversation, dialogue, and sometimes debate as well. Because Buddha at that time was new, right? Because Buddha was the founder of, you can say, the Buddha Dhamma, the Buddhism. So he was somebody who knew in that culture, though he was born within the Indian culture, but he had a unique view on spirituality, religion, life, happiness, practices, beliefs, views, and so many. So there were often lots of conversation, debate, dialogue, and sometimes opposition as well, right? It was a mix of so many things happening, right? And it is good to see what was Buddha's attitude, what was Buddha's, what was Buddha's view and perception of the Brahmins, who are still in today's time a very leading religious or spiritual practices in India. So, as Buddha would travel a lot, except for this 3-month rainy season, so he came to this town, a kind of a town called Opasada. It was in the Kosala kingdom. And it was a Brahmin village, Kosalan Brahmin village name. It was not a town, it was a village, Upasada. So we can see that the Brahmins had their own village, right? So community-wise village. That's something we can see from this record. So then the Buddha stayed in a place called God's Grove, God's Grove, a salad tree grove. He was there, and also in that village was a Brahmin whose name was Chanki, and he was ruling over Upasada. So he was ruling in that place which was given to him by King Pasenadi Kosala. It was rich in grassland, woodland, waterway, grain, royal endowment, a sacred grain. So it was a very, very prosperous village, which was given by King Pasenadi as a grant to him, and he was like ruling there, something like Vatican City in Italy. So the king was, of course, supporting this Brahmin. So the household of Brahmins heard. So when the Buddha came, all these Brahmin, all the people of Upasada, they heard about the Buddha, that it seems the ascetic Gautama, a Sakyan gone forth from a Sakyan family, is wandering in the land of Vedahen together with a large Sangha of 500 monks. He has this good reputation. The Blessed One is perfected, a fully awakened, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and human, awakened, blessed. He has realized with his own insight this world with gods, maras and divinities, this population with ascetics and Brahmins, gods and human, and he makes it known to others. He proclaims a teaching that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, meaningful and well-phrased, and he reveals a spiritual practice that is entirely full and pure. It's good to see such perfected ones. So that was the reputation of Buddha. That was the you can say in today's world, the viral video of Buddha. So he had this reputation, and people thought it's good to see such a person, right? So this is how they looked at Buddha, as somebody who is an awakened, enlightened person, and he's a teacher, a guide, somebody who has full in knowledge and conduct, and somebody who can explain the teaching properly, and somebody who teach a teaching which is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, right? So he teaches something where you don't need to be afraid, right? You don't need to scare in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end, all the three times. So this is the reputation that the Buddha had among people, and it seems to us that people were already acquainted with some of these spiritual knowledges, but then they would want to see somebody who's spiritually evolved, who has sort of achieved such spiritual height. So we can also see that people were willing to hear, like people were willing to hear something new when they hear such people, somebody who can teach. So we can see people were open to something new in that time in India. So I think that is the culture at that time, and even today, I think so. So then they, so then all of them thought, let us, large number of people thought we will go to see the Buddha. And at that time, the Brahmin Chanki, he saw, a lot of people were going north side, and at that time he saw them, and then he found out from his minister where they were going, and they said, I also would like to come, right? I also would like to come and see. And then he decided, and then some other Brahmins in that village, they heard about it, and then they came to him, and then they said, oh, it's not good. It's not proper for you to go to see Buddha. Rather, he should come to see you, right? Because Buddha, obviously, he was young at that time, maybe not so old or not so elderly. And, people would think that somebody who is elder, advanced in age, are more wiser. That was a kind of notion. But of course here the other reason also. So they say, and now they're saying why the Brahmin Chanki should not go to see Buddha, why Buddha should come and see him. So they give a reason quite long, but in the sense not very long, a few paragraphs, but I would like you to hear, it's interesting. So he said, sir, do not go to see the recluse Gautama. It is not proper, Master Chanki, for you to see the recluse Gautama. Rather, it is proper for the recluse Gautama to come to see you. For you, sir, are well born on both sides, of pure maternal and paternal descent, 7 generations back, unassailable and impeccable in respect of birth. Since that is so, Master Chanki, it is not proper for you to go to see the recluse Gautama. Rather, it is proper for the recluse Gautama to come to see you. You, sir, are rich with great wealth and possession. You, sir, are a master of 3 Vedas, with their vocabularies, liturgy, phonology, etymology, and the history as the 5th. Skill in philology and grammar, you are fully versed in natural philosophy and in the marks of a great man. You, sir, are handsome, comely, graceful, possessing supreme beauty of complexion, with sublime beauty and sublime presence, remarkable to behold. You, sir, are virtuous, mature in virtue, possessing mature virtue. You, sir, are a good speaker with good delivery. You speak words that are cautious, distinct, flawless, and communicate the meaning. You, sir, teach the teachers of many, and you teach the recitation of the hymn to 300 Brahmin students. You, sir, are honored, respected, revered, venerated, and esteemed by King Pasenadi of Kosala. You, sir, are honored, respected, revered, and venerated, and esteemed by the Brahmin Pokkara Sati. You, sir, ruler of Upasada, a crown property abundant in living beings, a sacred grant given to you by King Pasenadi of Kosala. Since it is so, Master Chanki, it is not proper for you to go to see the recluse Gautama. Rather, it is proper for the recluse Gautama to come to see you. Okay, so this is the Brahmins. They didn't want them to go to Buddha, Chanki, because of all this reason. That was their conclusion. But Chanki says, no, I should go to him. It's not proper for him to come to me. I should go to him. That's also quite interesting. Right, so I want you to hear this as well. The next section. When this was said, the Brahmin Chanki told those Brahmins, now, sir, hear from me why it is proper for me to go to see Master Gautama, and why it is not proper for Master Gautama to come to see me. Sirs, the recluse Gautama is well born on both sides, of pure maternal and paternal descent, 7 generations back, unassailable and impeccable in respect of birth. Since this is so, sir, it is not proper for Master Gotama to come to see me, rather it is proper for me to go to see Master Gotama. Sir, the recluse Gotama went forth, abandoning much gold and bullion stored away in vault and in loft. Sir, the recluse Gotama went forth from the home life into homelessness, while still young, a black-haired young man, endowed with the blessing of youth in the prime of life. Sir, the recluse Gotama shaved off his hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, and went forth from the home life into homelessness, though his mother and father wished otherwise, wept with tearful faces. Sir, the recluse Gotama is handsome, comely, and graceful, possessing supreme beauty of complexion, with sublime beauty and sublime presence, remarkable to behold. Sir, the recluse Gotama is virtuous, with noble virtue, with wholesome virtue, possessing wholesome virtue. Sir, the recluse Gotama is a good speaker with good delivery. He speaks words that are cautious and distinct, flawless, and communicate the meaning. Sir, the recluse Gotama is teacher of the teachers, is a teacher of the teachers of many. Sir, the recluse Gotama is free from sensual lust and without personal vanity. Sir, the recluse Gotama holds the doctrine of the moral efficacy of action, the doctrine of the moral efficacy of deeds. He does not seek any harm for the line of Brahmins. Very important point. He does not seek any harm for the line of Brahmins. Sir, the recluse Gotama went forth from an aristocratic family, from one of the original noble families. Sir, the recluse Gotama went forth from a rich family, from a family of great wealth and great possession. Sir, the people come from remote kingdoms and the remote district to question the recluse Gotama. To ask question to recluse Gotama. Sir, many thousands of deities have gone forth for refuge, which means the divine people, for life to recluse Gotama. Sir, a good report of the recluse Gotama has been spread to this effect. The Blessed One is accomplished, fully enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, sublime, knower of the world, incomparable, leader of person to be tamed, teacher of gods and human, enlightened and blessed. Sir, the recluse Gotama possesses 32 marks of a great man. Sir, King Senia Bimbisara of Magadha and his wife and children have gone for refuge for life to the recluse Gotama. Sir, King Pasenadev Kosala and his wife and children have gone for refuge for life to the recluse Gotama. Sir, the Brahmin Pokkara Sati and his wife and children have gone for refuge for life to the recluse Gotama. Sir, the recluse Gotama has arrived at Upasada and is living at Upasada in the God's grove, the Sala tree grove to the north of Upasada. Now, any recluse or Brahmin that come to our town are our guest, and guests should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated by us. Since the recluse Gotama has arrived at Upasada, he is our guest, and as our guest should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated by us. Since this is so, sir, it is not proper for Master Gotama to come to see me, rather it is proper for me to go to see Master Gotama. Sir, this much is the praise of Master Gotama that I have learned, but the praise of Master Gotama is not limited to that, for the praise of Master Gotama is immeasurable. Since Master Gotama possesses each one of these factors, it is not proper for him to come to see me, rather it is proper for me to go to see Master Gotama. Therefore, sir, let all of us go to see the recluse Gotama. So, very important kind of course, how as a Brahmin looked at Buddha, right? So you can see what was a Brahmin's attitude and understanding about Buddha and how they looked at him. And pretty much a lot of things look similar, the way he looked in himself and Buddha. But one of the important thing is that since he was a renunciate, somebody who left home, so he had a special respect, because leaving home and becoming an ascetic is considered something higher, something more bigger, something more, holy. So I think that was the one thing he was looking. And also it is very important to see that he does not seek any harm for the line of Brahmins. So you can see that Buddha was not somebody who was sort of kind of looking down on Brahmins. He was very amicable with Brahmins. He had good kind of intention toward the Brahmins. So that is something we can see. And also one of the things we can see is that the Brahmin Pokkara Sati, I think is one of the very eminent Brahmin. He was following Buddha as well as following this Brahmin, which is Chanki. So we can also see that how some of the people, the Brahmins, they were following their own tradition, but they were also kind of following the Buddha as well. That's something we can see. And how this village, they were very much, these Brahmins, they were very much respectful to the guest, who comes, especially a very venerated guest, somebody who is really spiritually higher. So they would respect them, they would see them, and even though they may be not exactly following their spiritual or religious practices, but that's something we can see. So then they went there, and then they had they had greetings and cautious talk. So they had hello, how are you, that kind of thing. And then they're seated, they were all seated. So in that assembly, there was a young Brahmin named Kapatika Brahmin, a young, shave-head, 16-year-old. He was master of the three Veda with their vocabulary, liturgy, phonology, etymology, and the history, skill in. So he was similar to this Brahmin in terms of knowledge. He was just 16, right? Kapatika, but he was fully master of the Veda and the grammars and the history, and he was fully educated. So he kept on interrupting the conversation, right? So the Buddha just kind of scolded, right? He said that don't disturb, let not the Venerable Bharatwaja break it and interrupt the talk of the very senior Brahmins while they are conversing. So Buddha said it is not good for you to interrupt, when we are talking, when the seniors are talking. But then the Brahmin Chanki said to the Buddha, no, Buddha, this Brahmin Kapatika, he is somebody who is young but very knowledgeable, very wise, who can have a good conversation with you. Then the Buddha thought, okay, so he must be somebody good to talk. So then he asked question to Buddha. So he says that, Master Gautama, in regard to the ancient Brahmins hymn that have come down through oral transmission, preserved in the collection, the Brahmins come to the definite conclusion, only this is true, and anything else is wrong. What does Master Gautama say about it? So this is the question this young Brahmin Kapatika, he asked, right? So he says that basically the Vedas which were coming down, this is the only true, everything else is wrong. So this is my belief, as that Kapatika is saying, it is his belief. So what does Buddha says? So Buddha says, how then, Bharatavaja, among the Brahmin is there even a single Brahmin who said thus, I know this, I see this, only this is true, anything else is wrong? No, Master Gautama. So he says that it is good that you know the Veda, but do you, whatever is in the Veda, is there any Brahmin who actually sort of experienced, realized, by themselves? Right? The Buddha is asking, okay, you have a lot of faith in your religious tradition, the Vedas, which are coming down from many ancient time, long time in the past. But is there anybody who really say that I know this, I can experience it, I see it by myself, not just by belief and by faith? So this is what the Buddha asked this Kapatika. Then he says, no, Master Gautama. He said, no, there is nobody who actually, they are good in, say, the scripture, but not really, experienced by themselves. How then Bharadwaja? Bharadwaja, I think, is the Gotra of this Kapatika. So, surname, How then Bharadwaja, among the Brahmin, is there even a single teacher or a single teacher back to the seventh generation of teacher who say thus, I know this, I see this, only this is true, anything else wrong? So he said, even the seventh generation, teacher, is there anybody? He said, no, there is no. Then he says, how then Bharadwaja, the ancient Brahmins, the Brahmin seers, the creator of the hymn, the composer of the hymn, whose ancient hymn that were formerly chanted, uttered, compiled, the Brahmin nowadays still chant and repeating what was spoken, reciting what was recited, that is Attaka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, Vesamita, Yamataggi, Angirasa, Bharadwaja, Vasetta, Kassapa, Bhagu. Did even these ancient Brahmin seers say this? We know this, we see this, only this is true, anything else is wrong. So Buddha is telling that even the one who composed the Vedas, who created this Vedas, like all these names the Buddha is telling, mentioned here, have they said that we know this, we see this, only this is true, everything else wrong? He said, no, we don't. He doesn't say. So the Buddha said, so Bharadwaja, it seems that among the Brahmin there is not even a single Brahmin who say this, I know this, I see this, only this is true, anything else is wrong. And among the Brahmin there is not even a single teacher. So that's what Buddha kind of repeats, So what Buddha says is that suppose there were a file of blind men, each in touch with the next. The first one does not see, the middle one does not see, and the last one does not see. So too Bharadwaja, in regard to their statement, the Brahmin seems to be like a file of blind men. The first one does not see, the middle one does not see, and the last one does not see. What do you think, Bharadwaja? That being so, does not the faith of the Brahmins turn out to be groundless? So Buddha is saying that it seems like you are all like a blind, right? Because you are just blindly following. That's what Buddha is speaking. Buddha is just telling, because you are just believing, right? So the Brahmin said, so this Kapatika said, the Brahmins honor this not only out of faith, Master Gautama, they also honor it as an oral tradition. So now the Brahmin is, when Buddha said that you are following like a blind, then he's saying that we are not just out of faith, but we have oral tradition, right? That tradition that comes from long time. Bharadwaja, first you took your stand on faith. Now you speak of oral tradition. There are 5 things, Bharadwaja, that may turn out in 2 different ways here and now. So Buddha is saying, first you were telling about faith, now you are telling about oral tradition. So basically Buddha is pointing out, the change in his argument, right? In his debate. So Buddha says that there are 5 things that we rely on, but they can be true and false as well. So what are the 5? Faith, approval, oral tradition, reason, cognition, and reflective acceptance of a view. These 5 things may turn out in 2 different ways here and now. Now something may be fully accepted out of faith, yet it may be empty, hollow, and false. But something else may not be fully accepted out of faith, yet it may be factual, true, and unmistaken. Again, something may be fully approved of, so also well transmitted, cognitive, well reflected upon, yet it may be. So basically, if you rely on faith, or approval, something which you can approval in the sense that people kind of, it is something that seems convenient, something that people can approve, or tradition, oral tradition in the sense coming down by, memorizing from ancient time, and even reasoning, what we call the scientific, the logic, even that, and reflective acceptance. So you are thinking about it and then you accept. So all these five are still something which can be, which can be right, which can be wrong. It can be either way, right? It can be true, it can be not true, it can be hollow, it can be full, so it can be anything. So you cannot totally just rely on faith, approval, oral tradition, reason, cognition, and reflective acceptance. So this is not fully kind of reliable. Then this is what Buddha is saying. But Master Gautama, in what way, Master Gautama, in what way is there the preservation of truth? How does one preserve the truth? We asked Master Gautama about the preservation of truth. So this is the question. If a person has faith, Bharadwaja, he preserves truth when he says, my faith is thus. But he does not yet come to the definite conclusion, only this is true and anything else is wrong. Bharadwaja, there is a preservation of truth. In this way, he preserved truth. In this way, we describe the preservation of truth. But yet there is no discovery of truth. If a person approves of something, if he receives an oral tradition, if he receives a conclusion based on reason cognition, if he gains a reflective acceptance of view, he preserves truth when he says, my reflective acceptance of a view is thus. But he does not yet come to the definite conclusion, only this is. So again, so what Buddha is saying, that then how do we preserve the truth? He is asking, because Buddha is saying that you can't totally rely on faith, approval, oral tradition, cognition, reason, cognition, and reflection. So Buddha is saying, then he is asking, how do we preserve the truth? So Buddha is saying that, okay, so Buddha is saying that that if you just rely again, on this five thing, you can be sure, but then you have some surety, but you are not fully sure that this is the truth, right? So this is the only truth. So to come to the truth, you can again not believe, rely on only these five things, So Buddha is saying that. So Buddha is now telling how do we discover, how do we preserve, and how do we find the truth? How do we discover the truth? So Buddha is saying that here Bharadwaja Bhikkhu may be living independent on some village or town. Then a householder or householder's son goes to him and investigate him in regard to the three kinds of state, in regard to state based on greed, in regard to state based on hate, in regard to state based on delusion. Are there in this Venerable One any state based on greed, such as with his mind obsessed by those states, while not knowing he might say I know, or while not seeing he might say I see, or he might urge others to act in a way that will lead to their harms and suffering for a long time. As he investigates him, he comes to know there are no such state based on greed in this Venerable One. The bodily behavior and the verbal behavior of this Venerable One are not those affected by greed. And the Dhamma that this Venerable One teaches is profound, hard to see and hard to understand, peaceful and sublime, unattainable by mere reasoning, subtle to be experienced by the wise. This Dhamma cannot easily be taught by one affected by greed. So now Buddha is saying that what Buddha is saying here is about greed, hatred, and ignorance, right? So how it is not just about faith or truth or just thinking, but ultimately the purpose of spirituality is to is to reduce and eventually be free from greed, hatred, and ignorance, right? So Buddha is saying that somebody who goes to a monk, to a bhikkhu, who is there in a village, and then he sees that whether this monk is somebody who is teaching based on non-greed, wherein, because greed, according to Buddha, is the one that stops us seeing the reality, right? But we should also understand that greed is different from desire, right? We can have desire, but greed is this unwholesome and a kind of a wrong way, wrong thought or wrong intention to get things, to achieve things. So that is the difference, right? So greed is something, when it is there, then it kind of blocks our understanding, our realization of what actually is truth, or you can say what is actually beneficial, right? What is actually a reason for happiness. So also hate, so also ignorance. So now, but then Buddha goes on to say that how do we achieve, this state of free from greed, hatred, ignorance, right? So what are the ways? So Buddha says that when he has investigated him and he sees that he is purified from the state based on delusion, then he places faith in him, filled with faith, he visits him, pay respect to him. Having paid respect to him, he gives ear. When he gives ear, he hears the Dhamma. Having heard the Dhamma, he memorizes it and examines the meaning of the teaching he has memorized. When he examines their meaning, he gains a reflective acceptance of those teaching. When he has gained a reflective acceptance of those teaching, zeal springs up. When zeal has sprung up, he applies his will. Having applied his will, he scrutinizes, and having scrutinized, he strives, resolutely striving. He realizes with the body the supreme truth and sees it by penetrating it with wisdom. In this way, Bharatvaja, there is the discovery of truth. In this way, one discovers truth. In this way, we describe the discovery of truth. But as yet, there is no final arrival of truth. So, of course, what Buddha is saying that you need to have somebody who is guiding you, somebody who is teaching you to achieve the truth. But you need to also see the one who is guiding you. Is that person also free from greed, hatred, ignorance, or at least working to free himself from greed, hatred, ignorance? Otherwise, if you follow, you will be in trouble, right? You will also lead to be trouble. But when you are sure, when you see that person and you see that person is working for non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, then you visit him, you hear the Dhamma, you memorize, you examine, and then you examine their meaning, and then you gain a reflective idea, and then you accept the teaching. Then you get that will, the effort, the scrutiny, and then you strive on, and then you understand the wisdom, right? So then in this way you discover the truth, but you discover the truth, right? So after a lot of hearing, memorizing, reflecting, thinking, and you kind of discover, at least now you know, okay, this is the truth. But then you are still not, you have not still achieved the final truth. So then Buddha, then what let us see. In that way, Master Gautama, there is a discovery of truth
In that way, one discovers the truth. In that way, we recognize the discovered truth. But in what way, Master Gautam, is there the final arrival of truth? So the Buddha is saying, the final arrival of truth, Bharatvaja, lies in the repetition, development, and cultivation of those same things. In this way, Bharatvaja, there is the final arrival of truth. In this way, one finally arrives at truth. In this way, we describe the final arrival of truth. So final arrival of truth happens by just repeating, repeating the same thing, by repeating development, cultivation. So what is that? That we do, which is we have a respect toward the one who is guiding us, and we hear, we listen, we examine, we see the meaning, and then we have the acceptance, and then we put our effort, right? And then we do it over and over, again and again, right? So by this repeatedly doing, we eventually understand the truth. The final truth is by ourselves, which means that when we keep doing, we eventually arrive to the truth. But even before, we have some glimpse of truth, and we have at least some kind of a confidence, some kind of clarity. But as we keep doing and doing, then we eventually arrive to the truth. And when you arrive at the truth, it is your truth, right? It is no more something that is dependent on, let's say, Buddha, or let's say tradition, or culture, tradition, or whatever was spoken, that tradition, culture, or just reasoning, or just, oral tradition, or reasoning, or just reflecting, right? So it is a practice, right? You listen and you practice. So you also have to practice, listening to Dhamma, and you practice. And what do you practice is of course for the Noble Eightfold Path, right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right mindfulness, and right concentration, right? So these are the Eightfold Path. I will not go into detail. Maybe some of you may be aware, and maybe I can speak about that later as well. So there are different stages already mentioned. So again, this Bharatvaja, this young Brahmin, he asked that what is helpful for striving? What is helpful for us to strive, to make an effort? So he said scrutiny. We keep scrutinizing, which means you keep looking at scrutinizing our own practices, as well as the teaching also. Ourselves, our own practice, as well as the very teaching itself. But then he says, what is helpful for scrutiny? So he said, application of the will. So you apply your will, your desire, then only you can scrutinize. So he says, what is for the will? What do we do? He said, the zeal. You have to have a zeal, and then what is helpful for that? Then he said, that a reflective acceptance of the teaching is most helpful for zeal. A reflective acceptance. So you are accepting the teaching with a reflective mind. Then only you get the zeal, right? So he says, but for the reflective acceptance, what is helpful? He said, examination of the meaning is most helpful for a reflective acceptance of the teaching. So examination of the meaning. So the meaning of the teaching is something we have to examine, right? So that is something we need to again keep doing again and again, maybe by listening again and again, by questioning, by pondering, by discussing. So you get the meaning of the teaching eventually, right? So it's not like you have one understanding, but that is forever. No, right? You examine again and again, then it becomes clear to you. But for examination of the meaning, what is helpful? Memorizing the teaching is most helpful for the examining the teaching. So we memorize, we memorize. And then how can we memorize? By, of course, listening again and again. So we need to memorize, then only we can examine. And for that, what we need to do is hearing the Dhamma is most helpful for memorize. So we have to hear. Of course, in these days, read and reading also, but those days, hearing was more, I think reading was not a big culture. So you can say in today's time, reading as well, or audio, video as well. For hearing, what is the most helpful? So he's saying that for hearing, giving ear is most helpful for the Dhamma. So, which means you can say you have to give your attention, right? In today's time, we have this problem of short attention span. We can't listen to one thing for too long, right? It's a generation of reels, short. So we have to give ear. So if you don't give ear, then it is. So what is good, helpful for giving ear? Paying respect is helpful for giving ear. So you have some kind of respect towards somebody whom you listen, right? So you need to be respectful. So that's something helpful for us. For paying respect, visiting is most helpful for paying respect. So you have to visit, right? You visit somebody, right? So that's something which is helpful. For visiting, what is the faith is most helpful for visiting. So faith, you have certain faith. Because of faith, you visit. So that kind of help us. So now, so when this was said, so now what is the what the Brahmin finally what is the final outcome of this conversation? We ask Master Gautama about the preservation of truth, and Master Gautama answered about the preservation of truth. We approve of and accept that answer, and so we are satisfied. We ask Master Gautama about the discovery of truth, and Master Gautama answered about the discovery of truth. We approve of it and accept that answer, and so we are satisfied. We ask Master Gautama about the final arrival at truth, and Master Gautama answered about the final arrival of truth. We approve of it and accept that answer, and so we are satisfied. We ask Master Gautama about the thing that most helpful for the final arrival at truth, and Master Gautama answered about the thing that most helpful for the final arrival at truth, and we approve of and accept that answer, and so we are satisfied. Whatever Master Gautama we ask Master Gautama about, that he has answered us, and we approve of and accept that answer, so we are satisfied. Formerly, Master Gautama, we used to think, who are those bald-pated recluses? These swarthy menial offspring of kinsmen fit, that they would understand Dhamma. But Master Gautama has indeed inspired in me love for the recluses, confidence in recluses, reverence for recluses. Magnificent Master Gautama, and then there is this thing of so from there is a long this thing which has been skipped here, that how something which was turned upset has been put, something which was lost has been shown and put light in the darkness. From today, let Master Gautama remember me as a follower who has gone to him for refuge. So finally, this Brahmin Bharadwaja, he kind of satisfied with all the teaching, and he says that before he thought that this bold ascetics, he thought that they didn't know anything much, they thought that they are the one who are superior, who has more knowledge, but now he becomes the follower of Buddha, so he kind of accepts the teaching, as taught by Buddha. So this teaching is quite helpful from a, I would say, from a cultural perspective. So it has a lot of culture into it, the social and the cultural aspect here, but at the same time, the teaching itself, right, which is about non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, and how to go about, by paying respect, having faith, listening, giving ear, examining, scrutinizing, and reflecting, and then practicing and memorizing and questioning, and over doing the same thing over and over again, right? So we see all the different aspects to the teaching, and this is something very helpful for us, not just for spirituality, but also for the cultural part as well. But here, when we see the spiritual part, here what the Buddha is saying is I feel is more of a pure spirituality, rather than your position, your caste, your say your height, your own position in society. But spirituality is something that can be practiced by everyone, but by anyone, by everyone, young or old, and something that we can realize by ourselves also. It is something that we can ourselves realize, right? So in some way, spirituality is very personal, very individual based, that you need to realize for yourself, right? So that's something we can see here, and that you don't need to have so many other factors which were mentioned by the Brahmins, being born in a higher, the so-called higher community or class or whatever, but it is something that is that comes through our own repeated practice, the practice toward non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion, right? The Eightfold Path. So, which means you can say that how our mind gradually becomes more and more refined, more and more peaceful, more and more calm, and more and more concentrated, and more and more joyful, more and more amicable, and more wiser, right? So it's not. So that's something is the way to look at spirituality. Not just by outward. You can say outward achievement of recognition, validation, but it is very personal. So this is something we can see, and something we can learn from the today's teaching. So with this I conclude. I wish all of you good health and happiness. Sa